Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, a completely avoidable situation in Minnesota as ICE shoots and kills a woman. We'll break it all down. And a good Thursday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand on your own time by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. Melissa Gott and her team. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, and we'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. Before we get started on the hectic situation in Minnesota yesterday, I just want to lay this out here. You're going to hear some profanity on today's show. I'm not a fan of rampant profanity. I don't make that part of this program. But when public officials, and we're going to hear from the mayor of Minnesota and others, when they use profanity at a press conference, they obviously want it to be heard. If they're going to go to the lengths to use the profanity, including the F-bomb during a press conference, they obviously want that to be heard. So if you are somebody that is maybe listening with younger children, just be advised of that today. It's not rampant. You're not going to hear the F word said 48 times during the show today or anything like that. But that is, you are going to hear that on the program. So just a quick note on that. If you're somebody that is sensitive to that, make it as quick and painless as possible. But that is going to be on the program today. So a completely avoidable situation unfolded in Minnesota yesterday morning. Completely avoidable. And that is where we start. We'll break it all down. We'll hear from all of the parties. We'll hear from the mayor of Minneapolis. We'll hear from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. We'll hear from Kristi Noem, as well as reaction from other individuals, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, as ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, was conducting widespread operations throughout the state of Minnesota yesterday, most prominently in Minneapolis, where you had a group of agitators, a group of protesters who were spending their day following around ICE, using their time, which, they should have been probably working, doing something productive for society. They were running around the city of Minnesota, following around ICE. And that's exactly what they were doing. So you have a situation that unfolded yesterday morning around 10:30 or so local time, in which a woman now identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, apparently, and according to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who we'll hear from coming up in a little bit here on the show, was all day driving around and attempting to obstruct the law enforcement operations being conducted by ICE. And in the video that you have probably seen to this point, it's been plastered all over cable news. It's all over social media. Her car is parked parallel in the middle of a roadway, in the middle of a street. She is, according to Kristi Noem, and what appears to be to the naked eye, is attempting to dissuade law enforcement from conducting their operations. Now, let's take a step back on this. Not everybody agrees with what's going on with ICE. And that's fine. You don't have to agree with what ICE is doing. You can think, and it's a fine opinion to have. I think it's a stupid opinion, but you can have the opinion that what ICE is doing is bad. Again, it's a fine opinion. I'm not the opinion police. I'm not here to tell you that's not what you should think. But thinking that ICE is doing something that you don't agree with, and then going to and accelerating that to a situation in which you are actively impeding the work of federal law enforcement, is two completely different things. If you want to spend your evenings standing in front of federal facilities dressed in a frog costume protesting ICE, frankly, I don't care. That's your prerogative. If that's how you want to spend your time, if that's how you feel that you're making an impact on society, have at it. I do not care if that's what you want to do. However, when it transitions from standing in front of an ICE facility holding up signs that say ICE equals Nazi, when it transitions from that to you actively impeding the work of federal law enforcement, there is going to be a problem. And it's why I opened with a completely avoidable situation because that's exactly what this was. Standing on the side of the street, yelling obscenities at ICE, while I think it's stupid, is fine. Using your car, using yourself to actively impede the work of federal authorities is never going to end well. Sorry to rip the Band-Aid off on it, but it's never going to end well. You don't have to agree with what ICE is doing. What you don't have the authority to do is block them from what they're doing. And it's not just ICE. This is any law enforcement operation in any city, in any town across the United States of America. If police, local, state, or federal law enforcement is attempting to conduct some sort of operation and you get in the way, there could be, not all the time, not guaranteed, but there could be consequences for those actions. And we saw those consequences unfold in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Wednesday morning. And now a 37-year-old woman is dead because she thought it was important to actively impede the work of federal law enforcement. So in the video that is now well circulated throughout social media, and I'm going to play it for you so you can hear exactly what is going on, this Honda Pilot that she is driving is parallel parked in the middle of a two-way street, attempting to block federal law enforcement agents from continuing to conduct their operations. You don't have a car parallelly parked in the road unless you're trying to impede traffic. You just don't. You don't have your car sideways on a roadway. She's not attempting to pull into a parking spot. There's not even parallel parking spots on this road. It's a regular two-lane road through a neighborhood. And her car is parallelly parked in front of unmarked ICE agent cars. They are unmarked Ford Explorers and some Chevy Tahoes, but they have lights on. So, I mean, it's obvious that this is a law enforcement function going on. And so this is part of the video that has now been seen probably by tens of millions of people over the last day. So before you hear this woman start screaming, you can hear, and it's a little bit quiet, but you can very clearly hear these federal agents telling this woman, get out of the car. There's an ICE vehicle in front of her car blocking her in, and then there's an ICE vehicle behind her car. They are very clearly telling her, get out of the car. Now, you don't have to, again, like or agree with that order. But if a federal, state, or local law enforcement entity is telling you to get out of the car or stop moving your car or stop doing something, I am going to step out on a limb and say it is in your best mindset to do what they are telling you to do. I am never going to suggest or recommend that when you are getting orders and receiving orders from law enforcement that you blatantly ignore them and do whatever the hell you want. But that is exactly what happened in Minnesota on Wednesday.
No! Shame! Shame! Oh my fucking God! What the fuck? What the fuck? You just fucking, what the fuck did you do?
So now you've got this crazy deranged woman taking this video, screaming on the side of the road, "Oh my God, what the F did you do? What did you do?" And in the video, which again, you have probably now seen by this point, law enforcement tells her, get out of the car. They are attempting to get her out of the vehicle. She puts her car in reverse to try and get away. That is not working because she's near the curb. She then puts it in drive and starts moving forward. There is a federal law enforcement agent, a member of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, standing in front of her vehicle. He pulls out his firearm, shoots 3 bullets through the windshield, shoots, and kills her. It's a terrible situation, but it's one that I will continue to stand by, and I will tell you was completely avoidable. Completely avoidable. Had she not attempted to drive away when she was ordered by ICE to get out of her vehicle, I am very confident in telling you that this 37-year-old woman would still be alive today. I feel very confident in that statement. Now, may she have been facing some charges for obstructing law enforcement? Possibly, but she wouldn't be dead. She is dead this morning because she chose. Nobody forced her to do this. She chose to ignore the orders of law enforcement. That is never a smart, never a wise decision. You are not going to find a situation or a circumstance where I'm going to tell you, oh yeah, you should just ignore law enforcement. But that's something that you hear the left say all the time. They are of the mindset that ICE is a authoritarian regime. They say things that like Immigration and Customs Enforcement are stealing people off the street. They say that ICE is operating as a Gestapo here in the United States. They refer to these agents as Nazis. So it kind of makes sense why somebody would ignore their orders. They don't think they're a legitimate law enforcement agency. They believe that these individuals are akin to, Nazi Germany in the operations that they're conducting. And so all of this rhetoric causes somebody to believe, A, that it's a smart idea to try and impede law enforcement. Once you're stopped, or an attempt to stop you in impeding those actions, then she decides she's going to try and get away from the situation because she doesn't want to get arrested. She doesn't want ICE to take her into custody or get her out of her vehicle. So she decides that she's going to speed away. For her, unfortunately, there's an Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent standing in front of her car. He believes that his life is at risk. He pulls out his firearm, shoots and kills her. Plain and simple. It's a very unfortunate situation. You are never going to hear me tell you that I am glad that somebody is dead. That's just not the way that I roll. I'm not happy that this individual was killed in Minnesota on Wednesday. I am annoyed, I am ticked off, and I'm upset that the rhetoric that consistently is spewed by the left has led individuals to believe that these are smart actions to conduct. That is what's got me so ticked off this morning. And in the immediate aftermath of this shooting in Minnesota, the same left-wing politicians that have been raising the temperature on all of this, the same left-wing politicians that continue to spew and make the comments that ICE is stealing people off the street, that ICE is a group of Nazis, they're an illegitimate law enforcement agency, continued to ratchet up the pressure in the immediate aftermath of a woman being killed. I remember vividly in the immediate aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination during the summer of last year that there was a large national discussion on the vitriolic rhetoric that is spewed by the left. They said Charlie Kirk was a racist, a bigot, he hated people, all of these things to demonize him. And we know what the tact is here. You demonize somebody to the point that individuals that are screwed up in the head feel that they are justified in, unfortunately, killing somebody. And that's exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk. And in the immediate aftermath of that, I was very curious to see, would the rhetoric that is spewed by those on the left begin to tamp down? And I think in the immediate aftermath, it did for a little while, but we're back to where we were before. We're back to the same nonsensical, out of control rhetoric from those on the political left. And folks, I'm not just talking about morons and idiots on social media. We're talking about high elected officials, including the Minnesota governor and Tim Walz, who at a graduation speech early last year said that ICE and the operations being conducted by them, which are federal law enforcement operations, is akin to the Gestapo. That's not just some random Democrat standing on the side of the street. That is the current sitting governor of the state of Minnesota. I would contend to you that that fits the bill of a high-ranking official. So in the immediate aftermath of this, you had the mayor of Minneapolis hold a press conference about the situation. And instead of using this as an opportunity to say, okay, maybe all of this rhetoric that we are spewing, maybe all of the things that we're saying is leading to these situations, he doubled, tripled, and I would even argue quadrupled down. Here is the Minneapolis mayor.
There's a lot of information that is swirling around right now, and we collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America.
Really?
What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets. And in this case, quite literally killing people.
Folks, this is the rhetoric that I'm talking about. You are hearing from the elected soy boy mayor of Minneapolis, Minnesota, that ICE is doing what? Tearing families apart. This is the old meme that we always go back to on the left. People are illegally in the United States of America. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the entire Democrat Party let them swarm into the country. Donald Trump ran an entire presidential election in 2024 with a large part of it being focused on cleaning up the illegal immigration problem that we have in our nation. He ran on that issue, made it abundantly clear what he was going to do, and is now doing this. The American people agreed with him. It's why he won 7 of 7 swing states and won the popular vote, in large part. He very clearly telegraphed what he was going to do. He was going to surge federal forces that deal with immigration. It's literally built into their name. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That's the acronym. That's what ICE stands for. He was going to surge them into areas to crack down on criminality taking place in the United States of America. And here, in the same day that this woman is killed in Minnesota, you've got this mayor saying they're sowing distrust, they're tearing communities apart, they're causing chaos. They're causing chaos because they're enforcing immigration laws? I don't remember this same reaction when tens of millions of people were flooding into the United States from these same people. I don't remember Tim Walz. I don't remember Mayor Fry making these same comments when his community was being overrun by immigration. I don't remember these discussions taking place when illegal immigrants were taking over apartment complexes in the state of Minnesota. That rhetoric didn't exist, but it exists now.
So they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense.
Correct.
Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bullshit. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed. As soon as it happened and we learned of the incident, we had several priorities. The first, of course, was to get the victim to the hospital and to get care as soon as possible. And to the family, I'm so deeply sorry. There's nothing that I can say right now that's going to make you or your relatives or the friends of the victim feel any better. There were, I believe, 2 Minneapolis police officers that responded and were in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The second was to get ICE off of the scene. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of ICE and federal officers that were there at the time. Having them there was only causing more chaos. Having them there was only making a difficult situation even more problematic, and one that, yes, they created themselves. There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead.
So there's the rhetoric that I'm talking about. There's the rhetoric. The continued demonization of law enforcement. We have seen this now going on for the better part of a year. From elected Democrats all over the United States. From mayors to governors to members of Congress, members in the House, members in the Senate. This is an ongoing, continued effort to demonize law enforcement. And let me tell you how this plays out. These individuals make these comments. We'll hear from the Minnesota governor, the moron that he is, here in a few minutes. They make these comments and they give people the green light to obstruct law enforcement, to get in the way of law enforcement because they feel that they are justified in those actions because of the comments from these comments from those on the political left. It is a completely predictable situation. The Minnesota mayor here, the Minneapolis mayor, wants to talk about chaos. He wants to talk about the chaos that ICE is creating. Yet he doesn't want to mention and does not talk about at all the chaos that is being created by residents and citizens of his city actively impeding the work of law enforcement. He doesn't want to mention that at all. He doesn't talk about it at all. Maybe he should have come out and said, you know what's not a smart idea? Ignoring orders from law enforcement. It's an unfortunate situation for the mayor of Minneapolis because he can tell ICE to, quote, get the F out of the city, but that's not how it works. This is a federal law enforcement operation that they have the right to conduct. And regardless of what this soy boy loser mayor wants to will into existence, that's not how the process works. ICE does not and is not required to leave, to get the F out of the city because this moron wants them to. Because this jackass thinks that he's empowered. He is going to fight against the authoritarian regime that is the Trump administration. That's not how it works. So you can swear at your press conference. You can claim that this is bullshit. You can claim that it's propaganda that's being pushed out. You can make all of these claims. The reality is one that is very simple. The American people wanted and did, in fact, support a president that promised to clean up illegal immigration across the United States of America. And whether those on the political left like it or not, and they don't, he is following through on that promise. He is following through on the promise that he made to the American people during the 2024 presidential campaign. He has swept federal law enforcement agents all across the United States to deal with illegal immigration, to deal with individuals that have decided that the rule of law in the United States is irrelevant to them. For individuals that have decided it's not important to follow immigration law, that they are above that. And so they are going to come into our country illegally. They are going to come into our country on bogus asylum claims, or hell, just ignore a port of entry completely, cross into the United States illegally, and then get to live their life as an American. That's not how the process works. If you want to come to America, if you live in some third world country where you're not safe, where there's no economic prosperity, that sucks. That's a crappy situation. I can admit that. But it does not give you carte blanche to ignore U.S. and federal immigration law. It just doesn't. I can have sympathy for individuals in places like Venezuela, like portions of Colombia, like portions of Mexico, where you've got oppressive regimes, you've got drug cartels, and you've got other groups essentially running the show. Illegitimate drug cartel governments that are running the populace. I can sympathize with that, and I do. But just because I sympathize with it doesn't mean that I'm okay with individuals blatantly ignoring U.S. law. And that's the situation that the left doesn't want to talk about. That is the situation that has been caused because of the inaction of the previous administration. The American people have seen this situation over and over again. Over and over again. They're not satisfied with it. They're not happy with the rise of immigration in the United States. They just aren't. They voted for a change in November of 2024, and they got it. And I know for those on the left, Trump is a liar. He doesn't ever do anything. Well, he didn't lie about this. He told everybody very clearly, very upfront, what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. And now you're seeing it play out. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. Federal law enforcement, immigration and customs enforcement has the legal constitutional right to enforce immigration law. And for those that are found breaking that law, for those that are found in defiance of said federal law, there can be, and I would argue should be, consequences. And that consequence includes deportation from the United States of America. If you want to be here, follow the legal process. And I know the reaction, oh, it's really complicated. It's a broken, our immigration system is broken. Okay. You always hear that from the left. I don't know. You guys had control of Congress. You guys had a Democrat president in the Oval Office from 2020 to 2022. You had full control of the federal government. If the immigration system is so freaking broken, then why didn't you fix it? This is the old tack that they always go to. The immigration system is broken. The tax system is broken. This system is broken. That system is broken. Yet when they're in power, they don't do jack shit about it. They don't. They just complain. Constant complaint. Oh, this is broken. This is terrible. This isn't good. Well, then do something about it. But they don't. They haven't, and they won't because they're not really interested in it. It's a good political talking point to say the system is broken. It's a good political talking point to completely admonish any sort of responsibility you have as an elected official, speaking to members of Congress now, to admonish any sort of responsibility for anything at the federal level and just claim it's a crappy situation. That's not sufficient for me. That's not good governance. That's not strong leadership. It's none of that. It's a cheap, lame, easy excuse to push off problems onto other people. I don't know if the immigration system is broken, but I'm not the one saying it. It's the constant meme from those on the political left. These people have no choice but to come into the country illegally because our immigration system is so broken. Then fix it. Run a campaign on fixing the so-called broken immigration system. I don't remember that being a part of the Democrat platform in 2024. I don't remember that being a major part of it at all. It was, of course, as we've seen in now 3 presidential elections, demonizing the Republicans, demonizing Donald Trump, and demonizing his supporters. That's not a political strategy. That's not something that is a winning message for the vast majority of Americans. They made their voice abundantly and evidently clear in November of 2024. We'll hear from the Minnesota governor in Tim Walz coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We'll hear from Kristi Noem as well. Plus, we'll get to some of your comments coming in this morning on our live channels at YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. But before that, I want to remind you and tell you that and thank the law group here in Wilmington for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show, and remind you that when legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the law group right here in Wilmington. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across eastern North Carolina. Back in 2020, when I was going through the process of purchasing my home, I reached out to Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group for help with my real estate transaction. They helped me through every part of the process. They made sure all of my questions were answered. Any issues that did pop up, they resolved them absolutely as quickly as possible. They're located in downtown Wilmington, and they're just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call, 910-251-6088, or their website, lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. All right, we'll grab a quick break. More coverage from a completely avoidable situation in Minneapolis, Minnesota yesterday, as a 37-year-old woman was shot and killed by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We'll continue with that as the Nick Craig Show rolls along on a Thursday morning, streaming live on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show as we continue our coverage this morning of a horrific situation unfolding in Minnesota yesterday as an individual, 37-year-old woman, was shot and killed by law enforcement after ignoring orders to get out and stop moving her vehicle. She decided to accelerate towards law enforcement. From all accounts and from video that is clear and obvious to me from the naked eye, she decided to ignore those orders, accelerate towards federal law enforcement. One of them pulled out their firearm and shot and killed her. A 37-year-old woman fatally shot Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis, Minnesota on Wednesday. We've got a lot of coverage of that this morning. And if you want to check out our show notes and get access to more content here from the show, encourage you to head on over to our Patreon account, patreon.com/Nick Craig. You can support the show, get access to daily show notes and more. All of that available, patreon.com/Nick Craig. There's also a link on the website, nickcraig.com. So we've heard from the mayor of Minneapolis, Mayor Fry, how ICE needs to get out of the city. This is a narrative that is being spun by them. This was not a self-defense situation in any way, shape, or form. This is the federal authorities' fault. ICE is ripping families apart. They're doing this. They're doing that. This is a larger, growing issue on the political left of them not being able to wrap their head around there are consequences for their actions. Individuals are responsible for the things that they do, and sometimes there are very negative consequences. So we've heard from the mayor It didn't take long for the now disgraced Governor Tim Walz to find a microphone. This is what he had to say.
This morning we learned that an ICE officer shot and killed someone in Minneapolis. My deepest condolences to the family, to the loved ones who had to learn about this tragic event on national television. We have been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV, and today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear, Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident, but we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this: I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do. We can't give them what they want.
Well, let's be perfectly honest about this, Mayor Walz. The people of Minnesota do not have a great track record with peacefully protesting. This is the same state and the same city in Minneapolis that was literally burned to the ground during the summer of 2020 during the George Floyd protests and riots. So let's not sit here and sugarcoat this as the people of Minnesota always peacefully protest. Not true at all, including the woman, unfortunately, who was shot and killed. She decided to use her vehicle to block and impede the actions of federal law enforcement.
The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this: please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over.
So this new meme that seems to be popping up: we will not be used as a prop. Who is using you as a prop? I just don't understand the comment. You've got a large problem with illegal immigration in the state of Minnesota and presumably in cities like Minneapolis. You have got federal law enforcement entities that are carrying out what is obligated to be carried out, which is federal immigration law. And now all of a sudden we're hearing from people like Tim Walz that they're being used like some sort of prop. Like they're being used as some sort of shiny object on the national stage. I just genuinely don't understand what he means. The situation here is one that I, again, will continue to stand by, was completely avoidable. And we'll hear from Kristi Noem here in just a few minutes. She made it abundantly clear in a press conference Wednesday evening that the woman driving this car had spent all day driving in and out, spending her time blocking the actions of federal law enforcement agencies. All day. They eventually got her in a situation where she was parked parallel to the roadway, blocking federal agents from driving in their cars, from continuing to conduct their operations. She was ordered out of the vehicle. It was abundantly clear in the video. Get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car. She decides, oh, crap. Now they're going to try and arrest me because I'm impeding their law enforcement operations. So she puts the car in reverse, is not getting anywhere, puts it in drive, and drives right towards a member of ICE. That law enforcement agent, who we found out in Kristi Noem's press conference on Wednesday evening, that individual had been previously dragged by a protester's vehicle in June of 2025 when ICE was carrying out continued operations throughout Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. He drew his firearm and shot and killed her. What was the objective here? What was the plan here? That you were going to spend all day impeding the work of ICE? You were going to ignore the orders of federal law enforcement? And then when they tell you to get out of your vehicle, you're going to try and speed away and no problem? This is exactly what I mentioned. There has to be consequences for your actions. I'm not saying the consequence is that she should be dead. That's not what I'm saying at all. Do not misconstrue the words coming out of my mouth. I'm saying there should be consequences. She should have probably been arrested. Had she stopped and gotten out of the vehicle like she was ordered, she probably would have been temporarily detained, and she may have been charged with something like obstructing law enforcement. Maybe, if that. She probably would have been detained for a short period of time and then released. But no, she chose not to. She got caught in the action. She was finally stopped by law enforcement, and she decided the solution was to jet out of that place as quick as possible. And it led to her losing her life. It's completely predictable. And the governor of Minnesota puppeting the same garbage from the mayor of Minneapolis, it's everybody else's fault. No personal responsibility, no personal accountability. It's Donald Trump's fault. Once again, we don't need your help in Minnesota. The people of Minnesota think otherwise, Tim. That's why they rejected you as to being the vice president of the United States. There's a reason why Tim Walz isn't running for re-election in 2026. We talked about that on the Monday show. It's because he can't win. Because the people of Minnesota have turned their back on failed Democratic leadership coming out of that state. So you've got a situation where La Resistance is continuing to unfold on the streets. People are acting in what I can only describe as a very stupid manner. And I don't say that lightly, but I mean, if you think it's a good idea to use a vehicle, use any sort of object to impede law enforcement, whether we're talking about ICE, state highway patrol, or local police, if you think that is a good idea, you are not a bright individual. That is a very stupid thing to do. Because law enforcement has the authority to conduct operations, whether you agree with them or not. It is well established that ICE is allowed to enforce federal immigration law. You don't get to impede them with your Honda Pilot because you think that they don't. You don't get to impede them with your car because you think it's mean with what's going on. Because you think that ICE is tearing families apart, as you just heard from the mayor of Minneapolis. It does not give you said justification. It does not allow you to act in a reckless, stupid manner. Yet, here we are. Now, the part of the conversation, of course, has divulged into whether this was an action that was justified. Did this officer feel like his life was at risk? And you know, there's a great comment coming in on our Rumble live chat this morning. It says, I'd love to get the officer in the background, her opinion. If a car is coming at you, what do? I mean, that's kind of where I fall on this whole thing. And, you know, there's all of these Monday morning quarterbacks on social media, all of these Monday morning quarterbacks on cable news. Well, if you run the video frame by frame, you can see that the tires were turned to the right and that she probably wouldn't have hit. You're talking about a split-second decision. We see this every single time there's a large controversial law enforcement action. You've got these moron talking heads, these moron pundits on cable news and everywhere else that spend all of their time dissecting it frame by frame. The ICE agent who saw a car barreling towards him didn't have the ability to go frame by frame. I guess in Tim Walz and in Mayor Fry's perfect little universe, he should have been hit by the car first before he responded. Presumably that's what they would have wanted. He needed to have been run over by the car, potentially killed by the car, before it would have been justifiable for ICE to act. Had that happened, then I don't know what the hell they'd be talking about. Had that situation unfolded, I don't know what the spin would be this morning. Other angles of the video show very clearly that this officer was hit by the vehicle. Let's be clear, he wasn't run over at 70 miles an hour, but he was hit by the car. The car hit him. He responded with lethal force, as we'll hear from Kristi Noem here in just a second. That is what they are trained to do. And I was watching The Five last night, and I heard Harold Ford made the point, he should have shot out, the ICE agent should have shot out her tires or something like that. And Lawrence Jones was on there and said, man, that's not how law enforcement's trained. You don't shoot out somebody's tire. That's not how law enforcement is trained. When a law enforcement agent, whether we're talking about a federal agent or a state or local agent, when they draw their gun, it is not to deter a situation. They draw their guns in the most extreme circumstances that exist. It's why cops carry around tasers, so that they can neutralize a threat without shooting and killing them. If a law enforcement agent has their firearm drawn, not a taser, but a firearm, most of the time a pistol drawn, there is a very strong possibility that somebody is going to get shot and killed. That's what they are trained to do, to neutralize a threat. If a situation has devolved to the point where you, as a law enforcement agent, have to draw your firearm, you are instructed and you are trained to neutralize the threat. That includes shooting and killing somebody. You don't have to like that situation. That is how they are trained to operate. They have a taser otherwise, but a taser doesn't work against a moving vehicle. You can't shoot two little probes from a taser into a Honda Pilot and neutralize the threat. And here's the thing. The courts will adjudicate this. There will likely be charges pressed. Maybe. I'm not sure how that process is going to play out. But there will likely be charges pressed. And then a court will determine whether this officer, whether this member of Immigration and Customs Enforcement was justified in their actions. They will determine whether this officer was justified in using lethal force. I'm not a court of law. I'm not a law enforcement expert. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. From the naked eye and from my being able to look at something and make my own determination, it seems plausible that this law enforcement agent, having a moving car going towards him, felt like his life was in serious risk. Felt like there was a risk of serious bodily injury or death, which I think is a normal human reaction to a vehicle moving towards you. I mean, at the youngest of ages, for anybody that grew up in any sort of suburban area, you're out hanging out in the street, playing with your friends, you're riding around bikes, shooting basketball, whatever you're doing out on the streets. You learn at a very, very young age to get the hell out of the way when there is a moving vehicle. You learn at a very young age that if there is a moving vehicle, you should not be near it. You are told to be afraid of a moving vehicle, and justifiably. Because a car rolling down the road that weighs thousands of pounds, hitting you and running you over, can very likely kill you. We learned this at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. So I think it's a pretty instinctual human reaction to get out of the way of a moving car, if possible. In the case of law enforcement, they have firearms. They are trained that when you believe that there is a risk of serious bodily injury or death, that you respond to it. That's the training that they receive. The head of the Department of the head of DHS, Secretary Kristi Noem, flew to Minnesota last night. She was in Texas earlier in the day at an event. She flew to Minnesota shortly after this situation took place and addressed the media on the ongoing situation that was unfolding. This is what Kristi Noem had to say in Minnesota on Wednesday.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day.
And I'm going to note again, this is an important part of the story. This is not just some random citizen, wrong place, wrong time. According to Kristi Noem, the head of DHS, the individual driving this Honda Pilot, the 37-year-old woman who was shot and killed by ICE, all day had been using her vehicle to impede law enforcement. This wasn't just, oh crap, I'm in the wrong place, wrong time. This was a coordinated effort all day to try and impede Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is a very important part of the story.
ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border.
And that's what the left doesn't want to hear. And actually, ironically enough, as soon as Kristi Noem started mentioning this at the press conference last night, I had all 4 of the cable news networks on. MSNBC, or now MS Now, immediately cut away from her comments and went to some left-wing guests that they had on. They immediately cut away from her comments when she laid out exactly what is going on. Federal agents are enforcing federal immigration law across the country. You don't have to like it or agree with it, but that's how the law is written. That is the authority that ICE has. That is the authority that DHS has. You don't have to agree with it, but they have the authority to do so. A great comment coming in. The current trend with protesters is to physically block vehicles with their bodies. You see it all the time. All the time. We're going to act as a human shield. I cannot wrap my head around the idea where you think it is a good idea in any case or shape or form to ignore orders from law enforcement. If you got pulled over by a local or state highway patrol member here in North Carolina, and they tell you, keep your hands on the wheel, and you go to reach for your glove box, you go to open your center console, when they have instructed you to keep your hands on the wheel, you are putting your life at great risk. You are actively ignoring the orders of law enforcement. That is not a smart thing to do. And some of the reaction from this, including the victim's mother, was, oh, she probably panicked in the situation. Well, then she panicked. She was instructed very clearly for everybody to hear and everybody to see. Get out of the vehicle. Get out of the vehicle. Multiple ICE agents yelling that at her through her rolled down window. She obviously heard them. She probably did panic. She probably came to the realization, oh crap, these people are going to pull me out of my car and detain me. These individuals might pull me out of my car and arrest me, charge me with something. So she probably did panic. Tried to get away from the situation. For her, she should have been more mindful of what she was doing. Maybe it wasn't such a smart idea to spend your Wednesday following around ICE throughout downtown Minneapolis and trying to impede their law enforcement operation. This all comes back to how there's this growing trend on the left that nobody is responsible for anything that they do. And this, folks, I will contend is a very, very dangerous trend that we are seeing. Actions have consequences. They do. Sometimes the consequences are more severe than others. Sometimes they are. But what has happened to personal responsibility? Seriously, it seemingly has completely evaporated from our society. Nobody is ever responsible for anything that they do anymore. It's always somebody else's fault. When you receive orders from law enforcement, I would argue it is in your best interest to follow them. If you choose not to follow them, you are putting yourself at serious risk in any sort of encounter that you might have with law enforcement. Whether it's a speeding ticket, a traffic violation, or in this case, trying to use your vehicle to impede and block the work of federal law enforcement agencies. It is an unwise decision to try and do that. And it's even doubly unwise to then actively ignore the orders of those individuals. House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about the situation as well. A busy day in Congress on Wednesday. This was his immediate kind of snap reaction to the situation in Minnesota.
I just saw the disturbing video. Obviously, it's a serious situation. There's going to be a full investigation, as we all know and expect. Look, it appears to us, I guess, anybody who sees the video from certain angles, that the driver of the vehicle weaponized that vehicle against law enforcement officers and against bystanders. It was a dangerous situation. People make snap judgments in those situations, and it's a really sad outcome. Look, I do think that it's right. I think I guess maybe it was Homeland or someone put out a statement that this clearly appears to be the result of this just months-long rhetoric against law enforcement and people encouraging that kind of violence. And so we call upon all the citizens of Minneapolis to be calm. We don't want anyone to be hurt. We need law enforcement to be able to do their jobs, and it's a terrible situation. But we await.
And what you just heard there from Mike Johnson is absolutely spot on. I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. This is a very coordinated effort by those on the political left to continue their demonization of law enforcement. People like Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, have equated those that are conducting federal law enforcement operations, aka ICE, getting individuals who are legally in the United States of America out of the country. He has equated them to the Gestapo. He has called them Nazis. He has made the point that they are stealing people off the streets of Minnesota. This is a very clear and coordinated effort. And so when you make these statements, when you continue to pump out this rhetoric, individuals feel like they are justified in standing up against such atrocities. That's the problem that's been created. And it's not just with federal law enforcement or law enforcement in general. This is a growing trend on the left to demonize anybody that they disagree with. They did it with Charlie Kirk. He was shot and killed. They did it with President Trump for 8+ years. He was almost shot and killed in Butler, Pennsylvania in July of 2024. This kind of rhetoric, these kind of words absolutely have an impact. These individuals and their rhetoric has an impact. It empowers individuals to believe that the things that they do, like impeding federal law enforcement, is a smart, justifiable action. And I can very confidently tell you right now, that is not a good idea. It is not a wise or smart decision in any way, shape, or form. So we're once again back at square one. And as I was watching cable news, I've had it on all morning, the rhetoric continues. The nonsense continues. The demonization of law enforcement continues. The demonization of everybody on the right continues. They haven't learned their lesson from Charlie Kirk. They haven't learned their lesson from the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. They continue to spin the narrative. They continue to ratchet up the political pressure. And then when something happens, when somebody gets shot, when somebody gets killed, they always have to point and blame somebody else, even with Charlie Kirk. It was justifiable that he got shot and killed because he says mean things on social media. That's what they said. That's what Democrats were posting all across the internet, including local elected officials here in southeastern North Carolina. Same thing with Trump. Well, if he wasn't such a scumbag, if he wasn't such an awful, terrible, evil person, somebody wouldn't have tried to shoot and kill him. That's their justification. They're okay with violence. They want violence. It's how they feel like they can justify their actions. This stuff is not going to end well for those on the left. It's not. I can promise you it's not. This is a very, very dangerous situation that we are approaching. I was hopeful, and I guess I kind of have egg on my face this morning. I was hopeful, unfortunately, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that some folks on the left would look into the freaking mirror and have a little bit of self-reflection on the constant garbage that they spew, the constant vitriolic rhetoric that they spew. That wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And seemingly we are back to square one. Demonize everybody on the right. Demonize everybody that you disagree with. Akin them to Nazi Germany. Akin them to fascists. Call them racists and bigots and homophobes and xenophobes and misogynists. Throw all of these words out there to encourage your fighters on the left, encourage your activists on the left to literally get out in the streets and fight. This is what the result is. You want to spend all day impeding law enforcement operations? I'm sorry, but there's going to be consequences. If you think it is a smart idea to ignore orders from federal law enforcement, if you think it's a smart idea when you're told to stop and get out of your car, to try and drive away from the scene, you're probably going to get shot and killed. Sorry, but that's the situation that we have unfolding. It's an unfortunate situation. I'm not glad that a woman was killed in Minnesota yesterday. I'm not. I think it's a horrific, a terrible situation. But seriously, what are we thinking? Do we genuinely think that this is going to go anywhere else? What is the eventual conclusion? Is it a civil war? Is that what's brewing? Minnesota mayor, or governor, I should say, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz yesterday said it is your patriotic duty to protest ICE. Don't take my word for it. Listen to his own words. Listen to the comments that come right out of his mouth. This is your patriotic duty according to the governor of Minnesota. Not sure why the audio on this is not playing. Let's see. This is the... does not seem to want to play right now. Yeah, here we go.
The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time.
It's a patriotic duty at this point in time. Impeding law enforcement, using your vehicle, whether she was trying to run over an ICE member or not is kind of irrelevant to the situation. It's what is plausibly available in the situation. I don't believe that her intention was to run over and kill a member of ICE. I genuinely don't believe that was her intention. But that's what a normal person can look at a situation and see. Oh yeah, there's a possibility she hits and runs somebody because she's panicking because, oh my God, I got caught. Oh my God, I've been driving around all day blocking ICE. Oh my God, they're finally they've stopped me. They boxed me in here. I got to get out of this situation because I don't want to be held responsible for the things that I've been doing. That is a very stupid thing to do. And it has unfortunately led to the death of a 37-year-old in Minnesota. 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, shot and killed by Immigration and Customs Enforcement yesterday because she refused to listen to their orders. Plain and simple. Last night in Minnesota, thousands taken to the streets in Minneapolis. The rhetoric will continue. I guarantee it. You heard Kristi Noem break down the situation. Where do we go from here? What's next? I don't know. I really don't. I don't understand what the end goal here. I don't understand what the objective is. If it's to get some sort of civil war brewing where you're going to have individuals actively attacking and killing federal law enforcement agents, I do not believe that is a good idea. I don't believe that is going to end well for anybody involved. It is once again time for those on the political left to ratchet down the rhetoric, ratchet down the pressure. You don't have to agree. You can speak loudly against this administration. I don't have a problem with that at all. You are encouraging individuals. You are giving them the green light to go out and impede federal, state, and local law enforcement. You continue with your demonization of those that are doing a job that they were hired to do. Whether you like it or not, they were hired to do a job. They're being ordered to do the job, and they're doing the job. Immigration law is immigration statutes are well understood here in America. If you've decided to break the law and come into the country illegally, you are subject to deportation. You are subject to being rounded up by ICE and deported from America. You don't get a choice in that. You chose to break the law. Now the federal government is choosing to enforce said law. So we'll watch this continue to unfold in the coming days, as today will be the first full day of a news cycle of this, and we'll keep an eye on all of the details right here on the Nick Craig Show. I want to thank the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook. The show is also available 24/7 wherever you get your podcast and can now be heard weeknights 9 to 10 p.m. on Charlotte's FM News Talk 107.9 WBT. We'll do it again tomorrow morning right here on the Nick Craig Show.